offer remarks. I'm not a presenter, as it were, but I will make remarks and, of course, make myself available for questions, and I reserve the right to rebut if necessary. I recognize, of course, Chancellor of the Judiciary, Emeritus, and now I congratulate you, sir, on your appointment as head of the Law Department. I was exchanging with Chancellor a few minutes ago my hope that he does not become a true academic and remains grounded in the law. Chancellor Griffith, again, I commend you for not only these talks, but leading the renaissance which is ongoing. To our resident rep of the UNICEF, we welcome you. My colleague parliamentarians, distinguished panelists, I represent the Prime Minister this evening, who is unfortunately at another event representing His Excellency, who of course is in the United States. I wish only to make a few points before taking my seat to be a part of what is going to be an interesting evening. The government of Guyana supports this initiative as it supports constitutional reform. And I wish to say that, as has been pointed out by Dr. Gravesande a few minutes ago, the issue of constitutional reform and constitutional reform have been current and extant from the time that we received independence. I, like some colleagues here, namely Mr. Shearer and Mr. Vincent Alexander, I believe, and of course Mr. Nandlall, have been at some various times a part of that process. From 1998 to 2000, there was the Hudmanston process where there was dialogue between the political parties, and there as well there was the Constitutional Reform Commission. There were parliamentary committees numbers 1 and 2. Prior to that, there was an attempt at constitutional reform, but of course the events of the coming of elections in 1997 were such that that process remained incomplete. Since 2001, when we last passed a slew of reforms, we have been unable to move the process forward to the extent that we wish to do so. Chancellor, you asked the question a few minutes ago, do we need to reform our constitution at all? Like you, I believe I'm from that school which says that a constitution is a living document, is a living organism which requires constant review and, of course, change as is necessary. Colleague present in the room, who may not wish to be identified this evening as being attributed to these words, has made the point over time and time again, over and over again, that our Constitution, certainly in the Anglophone Caribbean, stands out as one of the most advanced. But at the end of the day, is it serving our purposes? And I think by our presence here this evening, by the fact that we have a panel, by the fact that there is a group called RISE, which has taken up the cudgels of constitutional reform, by the fact that the donor community remains as engaged and that government remains as engaged, tells us that our work is not complete. And so it was that in 2001, we formed the Constitutional Review Committee of Parliament. That committee has, for the most part, remained moribund and has not done much work. It is now seized with the Constitution Reform Commission bill. I believe Mr. Nandlall is a member of that committee, and we hope that with his pushing, we can get it delivered out of that committee as fast as possible. The government of Guyana has made efforts to keep this matter on the front burner. We did make a manifesto promise for constitutional reform. To that end, we, of course, had a steering committee formed, which was chaired by Mr. Nigel Hughes, comprising, of course, Professor Lutchman, Mr. Hazim Paris, Mr. Gino Prasad, now Justice Prasad, and Ms. Geeta Chandan Edmond. That committee reported in April of 2016. We have worked on the Constitutional Reform Consultative Commission bill, which is in large measure taken from the 1998 bill, which was crafted during the 7th Parliament, and as I said before, is now with the Review Committee of Parliament. We have sought the support of the Carter Center, and I know that UNICEF is also providing support. And we have invited the United Nations to conduct an assessment, which assessment was done in February of this year, and a report has been tendered. That report has led to a project document being proposed, which project document is still being studied. And I dare say that the government welcomes every initiative to move the process forward. Before taking my seat, I'd just like to say that from my own observations, not necessarily those of the Prime Minister, but I have observed that it is only in the furnace of some pressures that this country has moved to constitutional reform from one time to another. And it is in periods of relative lulls or peace, so to speak, and inactivity that this issue of constitutional reform has dwindled somewhat. I heard, as we all heard a few minutes ago, that it takes a village to raise a child. That child in this instance is our Constitution. And whilst many may say that the responsibility is solely that of government, I believe that it is all of our responsibility. Government, opposition, civil society, academia, youth, women, all of us. And we all have that equal responsibility. Government, of course, may be charged with the responsibility of ushering in the process, but certainly it does not begin, nor does it end with the government. The government remains committed to getting this done, to working with everyone, with all stakeholders. And as I said, I am here to just make remarks, to observe, and to rebut if necessary. Thank you very much, and I look forward to an interesting evening.